Thank you, Chair. And I'm very conscious that I'm going to visit some territory this morning, very briefly and succinctly, with regards to funding, because we do not have a board meeting in January, and decisions will be made about budgets in the early part of next year. So, firstly, good morning to all the members and everybody watching online, and I'm very pleased to have Graham Bigger sitting beside me, the Director General of the National Crime Agency. Since our last meeting, as you, Chair, have mentioned in your opening remarks, the Policing Board have held processes for the Deputy Chief Constable as well as Assistant Chief Constable places. As a result of those processes, I share in your delight the appointment of Bobby Singleton as my new Deputy Chief Constable, and yesterday it was announced that Davy Beck, Mel Jones and Ryan Henderson were successful in the Assistant Chief Constable process. Each one brings significant experience to the role. These substantive appointments provide leadership certainty and clarity to everyone in the organisation and for all of those people that we are actually here to serve. I was present for the entire duration of both processes, and it was truly humbling to hear of the passion and the vocational commitment each one of the team has towards policing and keeping people safe in Northern Ireland, with particular commitments towards neighbourhood policing, tackling violence against women and girls, crimes against vulnerable adults and children, and hate crime, constantly repeated. Each spoke of the significant challenges of the unprecedented lack of resources in the PSNI in order for us to deliver the policing services that the people in Northern Ireland deserve. Like you, Chair, and I'm sure every board member and every member of the senior team, I too want to thank Chris Todd for undertaking the role as temporary Deputy Chief Constable for the last 12 months. Chris's support has been invaluable to the entire team, and his leadership through a number of key challenges, especially as you've referenced the data breach, has been exceptional. He's carried a heavy burden, for which we as a team are enormously grateful. Today, as you've mentioned, Chair, Chris is representing me and the PSNI at the National Police Chiefs Council meeting, and I'm delighted to announce that the PSNI will be hosting that forum later next year, and this will be the first time that we've hosted our colleagues, Chief Constables from around the United Kingdom. I'm also delighted to add some additional information that Bobby formally takes the role as Deputy Chief Constable next Monday. So I'm really pleased for Bobby, and we're very lucky to have him as part, not just of the senior team, but in such a key role. And I have to say, for all of us, it really is a privilege to be part of the senior team leading this incredible organisation. You'll see from my report that November's been a busy month in what has been a busy year. The performance has been quite simply exceptional. There's been a 10.7% reduction in reported crime compared to the previous 12 months. This is the lowest level since lockdown restrictions were in place. Crime rates remain significantly lower than in England and Wales. And I think this underlines how safe Northern Ireland is to live in, to work in and to do business in. However, while the level of crime has dropped overall, this has not manifested itself in reduced demand as crime types have changed. And we now have levels of demand regarding calls for concern and mental health related issues that quite simply overwhelm us. I'm incredibly concerned about those serious high harm offences, some of which have been reported in the media and we've spoken about at this board. I wish to be crystal clear that with our dangerously low resources, this means that people will come to harm who otherwise would not, and we will not be able to do what we need to do to prevent people from getting involved in crime because simply we have a lack of numbers of police officers in our communities. This is a stark warning for this board and everybody in Northern Ireland. I'm of the view that our effectiveness to tackle violence against women and girls has and continues to suffer significantly through a lack of police numbers. I am especially concerned about the impact on monitoring dangerous offenders. We need more resources, or there will be high harm crimes committed that could otherwise be prevented. We've relaunched our Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls Action Plan, as you know, and continue to work tirelessly to ensure that women and girls can live their lives free from fear, intimidation and harassment. But we need the officers to do this. That any good level of performance has been maintained by the PSNI in the face of our resource pressures is something nothing short of remarkable. For example, levels of antisocial behaviour, which has such an impact on the quality of life for so many people in our communities, has fallen by 5%. We know from a recent board survey of our communities that antisocial behaviour is a key priority, so this trend is especially good news. Tragically, this year there have been 14 murders in Northern Ireland. That's 14 families whose lives will never be the same again, and our thoughts are with them. However, the efforts of our officers and staff have ensured that each of these has resulted in persons being charged to court or reported to the Public Prosecution Service. If you commit serious crimes in Northern Ireland, we will arrest you and we will prosecute you. However, we need to be visible in communities to prevent offending. The scourge of drugs, paramilitary intimidation, hate crime and antisocial behaviour. With such a huge reduction of police officers in our neighbourhoods and response policing, we're simply not able to prevent crimes and deliver safer communities as you and I would wish us to do. It's still very clear to me that it remains the case, and that's why I will continue to say this, that many people in Northern Ireland do not appreciate the dangerously low level of policing numbers that we have. Notwithstanding our numbers, we seized over £10 million worth of controlled drugs and 30 firearms in the last 12 months. These were taken and removed from within our communities, with supply networks targeted and significantly disrupted. Just imagine what we could do if we had the same resources as policing elsewhere in the United Kingdom and in the Republic of Ireland. The extraordinary work to keep people safe carried out by officers and staff every day does not seem to make any headlines. This needs to change. I want to highlight just a few examples from last year. In January, 2 police officers risked their lives going into the River Barn in darkness to rescue 2 people who got into difficulty. Such acts occur all the time. Those 2 people would undoubtedly have died. Only earlier this week, and this happens all the time, I contacted 2 officers who rescued a violent woman entering her bedroom, which she had set alight, crawling to get her off her bed whilst she was seeking to assault them. Both officers suffered smoke inhalation and had to attend hospital, but saved the lady's life. I make such calls every week for acts of bravery. In August, detectives from Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking Unit disrupted an organised crime gang in Ballymena suspected of trafficking Russian women for the purposes of sexual exploitation. 4 people were arrested and charged with a number of serious offences, including controlling prostitution for gain. October saw the culmination of a long-running, highly complex international criminal investigation into the online child abuse and blackmail crimes of Alexander McCartney. Over 3,500 victims were identified, and McCartney's been sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison. We know there will be lessons to learn from this investigation, but the complexity and volume were extraordinary. Some of you will have seen the incredibly powerful BBC docu-series about this investigation, Teen Predator Online Killer. We work closely with the local documentary makers to highlight the online threat to children. It is not an easy watch, but I urge all parents to watch it, and please be aware of what your children are doing online. As I've said many times, where we get things wrong, because we deal with the most challenging issues in society, we will learn lessons and own our mistakes. However, the day-to-day delivery of policing in Northern Ireland, with the pressures and numbers we have, is nothing short of remarkable. That's the story of the PSNI, and we should all be very proud of our officers and staff. As well as some great work to support victims and communities, we're determined to look after our workforce. We've now hosted our 3rd Team PSNI event. We've scheduled 6 more for 2025. Over 1,800 colleagues have attended and had the opportunity to hear from and question me and the senior team. They've also heard of inspirational work done by their colleagues and from grateful victims and stakeholders who value what they do. In October, I told you about the incredible bravery of those recognised at our High Commendations Award ceremony. We've also made good progress regarding long service awards, as you know, in which there's been a significant backlog previously. We've delivered 9 events this year. Over 1,200 people have attended these events. They acknowledge and thank our workforce for all the work they do. They're critically important. We have a further 7 ceremonies already planned for next year. As you mentioned, Chair, I am really delighted to say that last month we received the welcome news that the Justice Minister has allocated £36.7 million of funding to the PSNI. This provides us with the ability to balance the books for at least this year. I'm particularly pleased that this announcement will enable progress to be made on this year's outstanding officer pay awards. I thank the Minister for her decision to prioritise and support for policing during this monitoring round. I am really grateful for this. But as welcome as the additional funding is, a recent budget planning exercise has highlighted that we face a pressure of over £100 million next year. A future budget that accounts for these pressures would provide us with financial stability and end the cycle of uncertainty that comes with having to rely on in-year funding. This is just not sustainable. Unless we are funded properly, staff morale, which has returned, will decline, communities will be less safe, and we will not be able to target fully those high-harm crimes that change people's lives forever, such as violence against women and girls and hate crime. I'm pleased to confirm to the Board that we have formally submitted our workforce recovery plan to recover officer and staff numbers to 7,000 and 2,572 respectively over the next 3 years. I look forward to working with the Minister to get agreement for this critical funding. I am preparing to launch a new student officer recruitment campaign in January, through which I want people from all communities to join the PSNI. Policing is an incredible vocational profession. Many people simply can't do it, but it's the finest example of public service. This organisation, though, remains at a crossroads, and our frontline policing teams continue to bear the brunt of this pressure. Our local policing teams have 360 fewer constables than they should have, and we have around 400 fewer neighbourhood officers than a similar police service in England and Wales. I'd like somebody to explain why we have to accept that. This means we're less able to address the demands of our communities. Violence against women and girls and safer communities are priorities in Stormont's programme for government, and both have a significant focus for me, the senior team and our officers and staff. However, and let me again be clear, we no longer have the resources to adequately deliver against these priorities and ensure that we provide the level of service that our communities deserve. Our recovery of resources plan must be supported for the safety and future security in Northern Ireland. And I watched with envy and interest the recent Irish election, where the 3 main parties each made commitments to significantly increasing the policing numbers in the Garda, against a backdrop of significant increases already in the last few years. Today, the government in Westminster are announcing, I think, another £100 million towards local policing in England and Wales. We cannot continue to be left behind. Finally, with Christmas just weeks away, we've launched our annual policing plan, Season's Greetings. This year, we're focusing on safer roads, safer shopping, and safer socialising. There will be a focus on nightlife and public spaces, public transport, and particularly on violence against women and girls. You will see police officers at key locations. If you're out and about, please stop and speak to them, especially if you feel unsafe or need help. We are there to support and take care of you. I hope everyone gets some time with friends and family to relax over the festive period. And I want everyone to enjoy the festive period, but to stay safe. If you are out socialising with family and friends, please look after each other. Ensure that you know where everyone in your group is and make sure that everybody gets home safely.